Hello, my name is Rue Weltzman, known on Facebook as the Controversialist. As the Controversialist, I speak about a controversial topic known as mental health. I write a blog about controversial topics around mental health, mental illness, self-harm, suicide. I share my thoughts and I share my experience with mental illness as a survivor of mental illness. I'll also speak about how mental illness affects someone and how you can help that person. And yeah, basically everything around mental health. I wanted to speak here today about relapse and how a person with mental illness, it can be a journey and it doesn't just go away automatically. It can always come back. As I suffer from depression, bipolar, and anxiety, I can say that I definitely have relapses. For example, last year I went in a hypomanic episode. In bipolar, you have hypomania and you have depression, and it goes a bit like this, where you can go up into hypomania and then you can have a relapse and you fall again into severe depression. And I was doing a lot of things. I was tutoring, I was teaching at a local high school, I was teaching at my own home school, plus I was studying psychology. You can obviously say that that is a bit crazy and a bit not very rational to do. But as a person with hypomania, you think, oh my God, I have so much time in the day. I can do everything. I'm a genius. I'm capable. And you're not really. Not in the bad sense. Of course, you can do everything that you put your mind to, but it's not very practical to do so many things at one time. And of course, I crashed into a depression. And this was after a full year of feeling completely fine, feeling healthy. Obviously, you have your bad days, but I was stable. And this was at the beginning of last year. And I fell into a depression. I self-harmed. I went into hospital for a few days, into a mental health unit within a hospital. And I was supervised by my psychiatrist and my psychologist, who I thank my psychologist for absolutely everything. She's been with me for 6 years. She's a lifesaver. And I went into clinic again. I went into a psychiatric clinic. And I'll speak about a psychiatric clinic in another video. But basically what I want to speak about in relapse is that it can happen and what to do when it happens. So, of course, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I'm just going to tell you about it as someone that has been through it. And basically, when you do have a relapse, the one biggest thing is not to think, oh my gosh, I'm going through this again. This is going to be a 3-year cycle all over again. I'm falling back into my depression. This is going to be a nightmare. This is going to happen. I'm going to have to leave my job again. I'm going to have to, everything's just a failure. And that's what I think every time I am a bit depressed, every time I have a snippet of a depressing, horrible feeling inside me, I think, oh my gosh, this is going to happen again. I'm going to fall back into depression. I'm going to go back into clinic. I have to leave my job. I have to disappoint everyone again. I'm going to be a failure all over again. And that is my trauma from what happened to me last year, where I had to leave my homeschool. I had to leave my high school that I was teaching at. I had to drop all my tutoring, except for one, but and I had to stop my learning of psychology, and it all just crashed in one go. And that's basically what happens in relapse, is that everything crashes all over again, and you feel like it's a complete failure. You feel like it's just everything is falling apart at your fingertips. And the one thing I've learned is that you always get back up. No matter how long it takes you, no matter how much therapy you have to go through, no matter how many new medications you have to go through, like I did, you will always get back up again with the help, with the support, and of course with coping skills. And I think one of the most important things is to learn your own coping skills. So someone can teach you a billion coping skills, but they have nothing to do with you. So you have to find your own coping skills, ones that suit you and your needs. So when I was very severely depressed, all these psychologists and psychiatrists used to tell me a bunch of things, and I never got better. The moment, which is bad for psychologists and psychiatrists, but the moment I stopped listening to them and I actually said, what does I need? What does Lyra need? What is a good coping mechanism that is a good, positive, healthy, recurring mechanism that I use? And I started implementing that. I actually started to feel better, like I could cope again. And I think that's one of the most important things in relapse, is that first of all, you will get back up again. You will climb that mountain again. You won't be at the bottom. And secondly is that, you need to find your coping mechanisms at this time. So if you have a relapse and for instance you're working, how can you implement those coping skills into how am I dealing with my relapse, as well as being able to keep your job or being able to carry on studying. So for instance, for me, I always need to keep in check that I'm not doing too many things to cause another relapse. So my psychologist and I always plan on how not to do too many things and how to stop myself every time I go into a hypomanic episode for a few weeks or days. And I'm like, no, I need to do this again and I need to do this. And I kind of calm myself down and say, no, I can't study that, or I cannot take another job. So I think you need to see where you are and see what coping mechanisms can I use. So for instance, that's one of mine. Another coping mechanism that I do is that I write down. So I look at my timetable and I see, okay, I can't fit that in. I need those 2 hours of relaxing during the day, otherwise I'm going to crash, or no, I can't. So I always see what works for me. And I think that's one of the most important things, is not to go into relapse, is that what is good for you, not for everyone around you, because at the end of the day, they don't care if you go into relapse. But you need to see what is good for me. How is it going to work for me and my mental health? So your mental health always, especially with someone with mental illness, your mental health constantly needs to be on your mind. Am I going into a hypomanic episode? Am I feeling a bit depressed? And if you are, then you need to reevaluate and see, okay, for me not to go into a relapse, how can I stop? How can I reorganize my life and see, okay, I need to do this not to go into a relapse? If you are in a relapse, you will go up again, okay? I promise you that, no matter how long it will take. But you will get up again. And I think you need to stay with us for that long to see that it will happen and to see that it can happen. If you are in a relapse, you need to, again, reevaluate your situation. What caused your relapse? And work on that. Work on what caused your relapse. And once you've worked on that, you can slowly get better. So for instance, when I relapsed last year, we said, okay, you cannot do all those things at the same time. What can you do? So I took part-time of my high school, teaching at a private high school locally, and that's it. Actually, that's what I did, is I just did that. And then the next year I implemented that I teach full-time at a school, but I study part-time. So I can manage that because I have time at school and I have time after school, because I'm not doing anything after school. So you need to implement during your relapse, you need to see what caused it and then reevaluate that to see how you can get better. And you can actually be a bit hopeful, because you say, oh my gosh, I actually don't need to do all of that. Right? So you'll feel a bit more hopeful and a bit more better into seeing another thing that I did was I did a pros and a cons list for each job that I had and for each every study method that I did. So for instance, I saw the pros of the cons of the homeschool and the pros of the cons of the private school. And from that, I chose what I'm going to choose to do. So I think that's a really, really helpful tool. And I think you always need that support. And if you don't have that support, find one person or one thing, even if it's your cat. Find that one thing or one person that gives you that support within. If it's hugging a teddy bear, do that. That's your support system. And of course, support yourself. You always need to be there for yourself. You always need to do you, and you always need to just be you and accommodate yourself. So I think those are the tips that I have about relapse, and because it does happen in mental illness, and those are the tips that helped me. If you guys have any tips that helped you, or if you have any questions, comment down below and I'll answer as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.